Hello there, many thanks for joining us in our Tuesday Business News Report. It's now time to bring you the feature on the show today. We're analysing the state of the Nigerian economy through the lens of the foreign portfolio investment in the Nigerian stock market, which dropped by 40.4% last year to its lowest level in 5 years as the active participation of foreign investors in the Nigerian market declined by 11 percentage points from about 34% of total market transactions in 2020 to about 23% in 2021. Now, the full-year foreign portfolio investments report over the weekend showed a significant deceleration in FPI transactions, and it was the main reason for the 12.4% decline in turnover of activities at the stock market in 2021. Total foreign transactions in Nigerian equities declined to 434.5 billion naira in 2021, as against the 729.2 billion naira which was recorded in 2020. And consequently, the percentage participation of FPIs in total market transactions dropped from 33.63% in 2020 to 22.88% in 2021. Portfolio investment inflows and outflows stood at 204.8 billion naira and 229.62 billion naira respectively in 2021, indicating a deficit of 24.74 billion naira. Now, these compared with inflows and outflows of 247.27 billion naira and 481.93 billion naira respectively in 2021, and a deficit of 234.66 billion naira. Well, joining me now virtually to discuss this and much more, I have Najim Yusuf, the Senior Manager, Tax and Regulatory Services of Deloitte. Thank you very much for joining us, Najim, today, and a Happy New Year to you.
Good morning. Thank you for having me today.
Now, Najim, looking at the total FPIs that we had, increasing from 1.02 trillion naira in 2017 to 1.12 trillion naira in 2018, before we now started seeing a gradual decline in 2019, and it has gotten worse up till now. What do you think are some of the fueling elements here that are pushing this downward volume in foreign portfolio investment in the country, really?
Okay, so thank you for your question. The simple answer to your question is that the decline is fueled by a weakening naira, a battered naira, and I'm going to quickly use a fast illustration to demonstrate this. So assume that you're based in the US, you bought stock worth say 150 naira in 2013, which was about $1, and in 4 years down the line, that stock has not, the value of the stock has not changed. It's still 150 naira, say in 2014. But when you look at the exchange rate, a stock worth 150 in 2014 is now just worth 50 cents in your hands. So just within 4 years, you've lost significant value because the naira has become weaker. So as long as the rate at which the naira is getting weaker is lower than the rate at which lower than the return on investment on the stock market, you should expect decline in foreign portfolio investment in Nigeria, because you're saying to yourself that year in, year out, I'm getting less value for my investment in the Nigerian stock market, even though there's significant increase in return on investment year on year, but the weakness in Naira is larger than the increase in RWA. So year in, year out, you should expect that decline. And that's the reason we've had declines in FPI since about 2013 till date. Apart from 17 and 18 that had some significant increase, other than that, we have consistent decline, and it's largely an FX issue. So and the simple reason, like I said before, is that the rate at which the FX has declined, as the naira has declined, is much larger than the rate and the return the stock market is paying to investors in that space. And if you compare it to participations of domestic players in that space, you realize that domestic participation had increased considerably from say 2014 till date. But unfortunately, the increase in domestic participants has not been as high as the rate at which foreign FPI has reduced. For us, for domestic participants, the simple reason is that, of course, there's RWA increase. We hold Naira. Of course, we invest in Naira. It makes sense to continue to invest. It makes sense, and you can understand why the investment rate has increased. But unfortunately, it's not increasing as fast as the rate at which FPI is diminished. So once again, the simple answer is the fact that the naira is getting weaker day in, year out, so, and that's why it's continuing until that changes. We shouldn't expect that the FPI will go up. So if we get a stronger naira, perhaps we're able to attract more investment from an FPI perspective.
A stronger Naira really is really critical at this point in time, but the Central Bank of Nigeria has always been cautious around the concept of Naira devaluation. Now we're expecting the MPC to announce its decision after the two-day meeting, which started yesterday and concludes today. So we keep our fingers crossed. But now, in terms of the outlook for the year 2022, it rather looks a little blurry, to say the least, as many investors are sitting on the fence and waiting, especially this is the pre-election year and the spreading state of insecurity as well. What's your forecast? Do you think we'll likely see a sharper decline or in terms of investment volume, or a slight moderation or some plateau?
So, I mean, I'm going to have to make a guess on this one. So I think we're going to have between some stabilization or maybe some modest decline in FPIs. Of course, certainly, I mean, I don't expect us to see any sharp growth in FPI in Nigeria because the facts on the table suggest that not a lot is going to change. So, for example, if you look through the budget, I mean, the government has suggested that the Naira is going to get weaker. And if we're saying that the reason FPI is declining is because we have a weaker Naira. So, I mean, if that's already in the forecast, you also expect that maybe FPIs will decline slightly. Again, looking at our GDP rate in 2022 is expected to be 2.8% or thereabouts. Of course, it's all good, but comparing it to what we've achieved so far in 2021 is not as fast. I mean, comparing to other economies, we're expecting to rank the 163rd fastest growing economy in 2022. That makes us, yes, even though we'll be going slower than the global average. So it may be just, I mean, what it suggests is that it may be more attractive to put an investment in other countries instead of Nigeria. So putting all that into context, I mean, it looks to me that maybe there will be some modest decline in that market. Again, I mean, it's also important to look at trends, and I go back to what had happened between 2014 and 2015. 2015, of course, was an election year, and I mean that makes 2014 a pre-election year. I mean, look through the numbers from 2013 to 14. There was a sharp increase in FPI investment, and then followed by a decline in the year of election. And something similar happened between 2016 and 18, the pre-election year, up until a decline in the year of election. So if trend is going to repeat itself for the sake of being trend, you may want to imagine that you will expect a slight increase or some modest increase in FPIs, but that doesn't seem to speak to the facts on the table. Looking at the FX liquidity challenges, looking at how the Naira is going to turn out in 2022, looking at the GDP rates, I mean, it suggests to me that there will be maybe some modest decline in FPI investments, maybe not as large as what we used to have it. Because again, if you look through the numbers that you have, even though we've had declines in foreign participation, the net outflow has kind of diminished. So for example, in 2020, we've got about 205 billion naira net outflow. But in 2021, it came down to 25 billion naira. So I mean, there may just be some just modest decline, maybe not so bad. I mean, and it depends on what happened in the beginning of the year. It depends on what CBN does about forex liquidity. It depends on if Nigeria is able to earn a lot more forex. So, for example, I mean, crude oil price is really good now, but unfortunately, we're not producing so well. So, assuming we're able to hit our OPEX threshold of maybe 1.6 trillion million barrels per day, we probably generate a lot more revenues in dollars. I mean, that puts a lot more forex in the hands of the government. It enables the government and CBN to be able to provide a lot more forex liquidity. So maybe if that happens, maybe if we fix security challenges in the Niger Delta, that helps us to generate more revenues in that space, CBN may be motivated to create some liquidity in the FX space, and that helps to stabilize the Naira piece, which ultimately attracts investors. So I think it largely depends on what government does in the early part of 2022, because by the time you get to the later half of the year, I mean, a lot will be focused on elections, and maybe not a lot will happen from a government perspective.
Okay, now, Jim, if I may button here now, it's quite critical as well for government to also look at expanding the investment base and overall economy, irrespective of insecurity or the election. Now, you made mention of the fact that we're also waiting on the decision of the CBN and also the direction government is also going to go towards. But in terms of utilizing arsenals and stimulants, what are the surprises or what other alternatives outside the box do you think we can bring to play this year, looking at insecurity and also election still being the constant elements here? Nothing is changing, really. So how do we move around this?
Okay, so for me, two things stand out, and one of them actually came up after we finalized the budget, and that's about the world's view on natural gas. Up until now, natural gas has been, of course, it's an hydrocarbon, it's considered fossil, it's considered not dirty source of energy. But earlier this year, EU issued a draft proposal, and what they're trying to do is they're trying to label natural gas as green energy. I mean, if that becomes finalized, it then means that investment that have not been coming into the hydrocarbon space because it's not renewable, because it's not safe for the climate, maybe those investments will begin to come now. So and I think that's a huge opportunity for Nigeria to position in that space. So for example, if we're able to come up with very friendly, climate friendly emission thresholds for our gas environment. So for example, EU recently set some proposed thresholds to say that if in your gas infrastructure you only generate, if you don't generate more than this amount of emissions, you'll be labeled as a green energy investment. And what that does is that you're going to have a lot of investment flocking into that space. So if you're able to copy that kind of threshold or something that works with our environment, what it means is that we're a bit more competitive compared to other gas producing economies. And when those investments come in, of course, that's that's even though that's not FDI, but that comes in form of FDI. Ultimately, there's increased capital implementation, there's production, there's a bigger GDP, there's probably a stronger. So I think it's one big
really
thing
vast.
That
the prospect is vast.
Actually, the prospect for 2022. Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time on the Breakfast Show this morning, Najim Yusuf. It's really been a pleasure speaking with you. And we definitely keep our fingers crossed to see all of the intricacies that'll play out this year. Thank you once again.
You're welcome, man. Thank you for having me too.